And yes, again, I didn't learn any of that when I was in medical school. In fact, I got a little a short story to tell about um, me and medical training. So I sort of tripped into medical school. I didn't grow up thinking I wanted to be a doctor. I was in high school and had some thoughts that I wanted to help humanity because I'd sort of spoiled myself in terms of my own life and was getting tired of that. So I had this opportunity to get into medical school out of college. I tried it, got in, and when I got to, uh, I had to take 2 years of college, got admitted out of high school, and when I got in, I naively thought that doctors in training were all going to be about helping people. No, they were about learning a career, a job, and a licensed career and job. And so when you begin to look at medical training, it's really all about learning how to do the things that doctors get licensed for, medications and surgical procedures. I did love surgery. I was good with my hands. Um, and so I thought maybe surgery is going to help. But it became very, very clear in med school that people don't really need prescription medications. They don't need surgical procedures to keep them from injuring their health, to protect the health of individuals. You learn it even in your first year of medical school. 80% of disease is chronic disease. 80% of what kills and damages us, disables us, is chronic disease. And chronic disease, it's really clear. You cannot out-prescribe. You've heard us say it multiple times. You cannot out-prescribe a lifestyle. You cannot out-stent a lifestyle. You cannot do bypasses, surgical bypasses, and bypass a lifestyle. And in terms of lifestyle, you cannot outrun a diet. You cannot outsleep it. You cannot out-supplement it. So it's all about lifestyle. It's all about diet. Again, you would think that doctors would learn about nutrition. And again, that's based on the assumption that and medical training is all about protecting health. It's more about teaching careers and jobs and licensed professionals. So I got very frustrated with that. Ended up not going into surgical specialty or internal medicine for the reasons I just described. I got out, went to a charity hospital for a year, and at that point in time, you could go straight into the ER. And I decided to just take some time, slow down, think about what I wanted to do, and went into the ER. I still got frustrated because these 60-year-olds were coming in with heart attacks, even 50-year-olds. I remember a 50-year-old man coming in with a heart attack. And yes, there were some challenges with the cholesterol metabolism that he'd inherited, but he, like so many others, coulda, woulda, shoulda prevented that heart attack. So I had a moment of truth. And the moment of truth was, well, you know what? If this is about my career, my job, my licensed profession, then no, I'm going to go back and get training in surgery. But if this is about helping people, I'm going to go into prevention. And going into prevention was just such a hazard to your career. It made me risk three things that I'd always said that I did not want to be. The first was a teacher, and teachers, forgive me out there, but I grew up with the Charlie Brown view of a teacher. Wah, wah, wah. And that was my view of teachers, and I did not want to be one. I also didn't want to be a bean counter. And sure enough, when you go into prevention, you go into epidemiology and biostatistics. You want to know what actually causes disease in populations. And that's very much associated with numbers and biostatistics. So I didn't want to become a bean counter either. And finally, and worst of all, You go into prevention at that point in time, you're very likely to go into being a government public health bureaucrat, maybe the worst thing in the world. So I said, you know what? Despite all of that, this is about patients. It's not about my career. I'm going to do it. I was very fortunate. I was able to get into Johns Hopkins in prevention, arguably the best place in the world for teaching doctors preventive medicine. And guess what? No, after 2 more years of training there, I really didn't get significant training in nutrition there either. And yeah, that's frustrating. Um, we sort of learned it. We knew it was important. We knew that, like I said before, what we'd learned in medical school, that 80% of death and disability was caused by chronic disease, which was in turn caused by lifestyle. But we just felt like everybody knew that. You just needed to tell them, and maybe things would change. Obviously, not logically very smart, but that's what we thought back in those days, the days when a calorie was just a calorie. So here's where I get into my own mea culpa, um, my own personal coulda, woulda, shoulda. I did well. I loved biostatistics. It really became more about probability than bean counting. And as you see now, I am a teacher. Um, and public health policy was frustrating and dirty and ugly, but it really was a lot of what needed to happen in terms of protecting health. So I did well, and I was actually asked to run the program there. Here's where I screwed up. And I didn't even know it until 30 years later. I didn't add nutritional training to the preventive medicine residency program at Johns Hopkins either. I totally failed at that. And it wasn't until 30 years later that I realized it. To my own defense, it was a very, very different time. Um, like I said, at that time, a calorie was just a calorie. You put food in a bomb calorimeter, and whatever it burned, the amount of heat that it created, that was the calories. We didn't realize that we were feeding 100 trillion other organisms in our gut. We didn't realize that for every 150 calories you ate of almonds, that 50 of those calories were actually going to support that gut biome, not you. We had heard of a fellow named Atkins, but that was really a fringe thing. That whole thing was fringe. We all knew at that time that it was fat, low fat diet. And again, those were not innocent days. Those were naive and arrogant days. And if you want to say, well, you've got delusions of grandeur, maybe that's true. Maybe I'm just an old man complaining. But here's the thing. Please don't expect your doctor to understand nutrition. He or she didn't get it in training. It's not likely to happen anytime soon. To my own defense, when I was at the program at Hopkins, we had more immediate issues. We had academic credibility issues. We had financial issues. And I worked hard and did save the program from that. So I was very proud of what I accomplished. But we didn't focus on nutrition, even with the knowledge that nutrition is what drives health.